Hello Internet, so nice to see you. One of my most frequently asked questions lately on this YouTube channel happened when I posted the videos on augmented 6th chords, and people were asking me if the augmented 6th chord are the same as a tritone substitution. Now, before I answer, bit of a warning here. This is really not a beginner video. So we have to go a bit deeper into theory. So if you're not following this, it's not you. It's that this video is a bit more advanced than the others on this channel. That's okay. On the top right, I'm linking a couple of playlists that can help you make sense of this. So first of all, let me explain what the question means. We have seen lately the augmented 6th chord in this channel, and we have seen that in the key of C major, they are essentially equivalent to an A flat 7th chord, resolving down to a G 7th chord. To people who studied a little bit of jazz harmony, these look like a tritone substitution. What is that? Well, let's say I have my C and G7 chord only, and then I want to do a secondary dominant to this G7. A secondary dominant is the 5th of this chord. So the 5th of G7 is another D7th chord, and so the whole thing will work this way: C, D7, G7, C. Now this D7, it's not an A flat 7, but that's where the tritone substitution comes in. The tritone substitution is this idea that we can look at the notes of this D7 chord, and those notes are D, F sharp, A, C, and we know that the two active notes, the two notes that make this D7 resolve to this G7, are the F sharp and the C note, the 3rd and the 7th of the chord. Those two notes are a tritone away. The interval between those two notes is a tritone. We know that there is another dominant chord that has those same two notes, and this is the dominant chord that has the root a tritone away from D. The note a tritone away from D is an A flat. An A flat 7 chord will contain the notes A flat, C, E flat, and G flat, and this G flat is enharmonic. It is the same sound as this F sharp. So if rather than playing C, D7, G7, C, I play C, A flat 7, G7, C, the whole thing still works, and this A flat 7 is a tritone substitution of this D7 here. It's called a tritone substitutions for two reasons. Reason number one is because the two active notes that we keep are a tritone away, and reason number two because the distance between the roots of those two dominant 7th chord is a tritone. So now, at first sight, it looks like this augmented 6th chord and this tritone substitution chord here are exactly the same chord. They have practically the same notes. They practically behave the same way. So, are they the same? Well, yes and no. Let's say, I will say yes to simplify, but they're actually two different things. There are three reasons why those are two different things. Reason number one, which for me is the weakest reason, is this, is that the augmented 6th comes from altering a subdominant chord. As we have seen, this chord comes when you take the 4th chord of the key in first inversion, so the F/A in C major, altered the F to an F sharp, the A to an A flat, so this is an altered 4th chord. It's a subdominant chord. The tritone substitution instead comes from a dominant chord. It's a dominant of the dominant, it's a D7, but so one of those chords will be subdominant and the other will be a dominant chord, and those two things don't work together well. It should be one or the other. Now, you would ask, how is it possible that the exact set of notes resolving the exact same way has two different functions depending only on how you think about it, I mean, the kind of different explanation, it's only in your mind after all. The two chords have the same notes, they resolve the same way. So in this case, I would agree. I think this is more of a problem of functional theory. The idea that in tonal music, every chord we play has a function, and in this case, when we start using augmented sixth chord and tritone substitution, functional theory seems to break down. It works great when we use diatonic chords and a few of the chromatic chords, but in this specific case, it simply breaks down. Reason number two on why those two chords are not the same typically comes from jazz players. And many jazz players, many jazz theorists have a vested interest in showing that those two chords are not the same. Why? Because if a tritone substitution chord is exactly the same as the augmented sixth chord, then it's nothing new, because the augmented sixth chord we're using classical music, and many jazz theorists want to make a point that jazz is completely different than any other kinds of music played before jazz. So most jazz theorists will point out that the augmented sixth chord, it's always an A flat in C major, and it always resolves to the fifth chord of the key, while the tritone substitution can be applied this way in several other places in the key. For instance, I can apply the tritone substitution directly to this G7th chord, and so transform the chord progression C, G7, C into the chord progression C, D flat 7, C. So the great novelty of jazz harmony would have been to apply this kind of idea and tension to different chords in the key and not only to the fifth chord of the key. But, as it happens, several composers at the end of the 19th century, like Tchaikovsky for instance, already applied the augmented sixth to the tonic. So you can already find a D flat 7 or a chord enharmonic to D flat 7 resolving to a C chord, first chord in the key, in the works of Tchaikovsky. This happens in several points in his production, and it happens also to several other musicians of the Russian school, and not only. So I have to say that in this specific case, I see more continuity between classical harmony and jazz harmony than difference. But here comes the third reason, and the third reason is the one I actually believe, and is the one that actually explains the difference between the augmented sixth and the tritone substitution. And notice, these may or may not be a difference in the way you expect. In the augmented sixth chord, the important notes are the A flat and the F sharp. We've seen it already that those are the two defining notes of the augmented sixth. The chord is named after those two notes, and how those two notes resolve is the important thing. In the tritone substitution chord, though, those are not the important notes. The important notes are the C and the F sharp, or again G flat, depending how you spell that chord. This specific chord here is the exact same chord whether you think about it as an augmented sixth or a tritone substitution. But if I want to use the idea behind the augmented sixth or the idea behind the tritone substitution to create new chords, then I get different chords. Because if I want to make a non-standard augmented sixth, I will keep the notes A flat and F sharp and change the other notes. And if instead I want to make a non-standard tritone substitution, I will keep the notes C and F sharp and change the other notes. The chord is the same, but those two ideas, augmented sixth and tritone substitution, make me think of the chord in a different way, and so make me work with the chord in a different way, and so make me extend the chord and create new chords in different ways. Augmented sixth and tritone substitutions are two different families that seem to share this specific member of the family. This was a bit abstract, so how about I make an example? Well, let's say, can I invent a chord that contains the notes C and F sharp, but does not contain, for instance, the A flat note? So it's a chord that is definitely a tritone substitution of the original D7th, but it's not an augmented sixth chord. Well, of course I can. An example would be a C minor 7th flat 5. This chord contains the note C, E flat, G flat, that is an harmonic to F sharp, and B flat. This chord is equivalent to an A flat 9 without the root. So we don't have an A flat note inside here, and this chord can definitely be called a tritone substitution of D7, even if it's not an A flat dominant 7th chord, because it's just a rootless A flat dominant 7th chord. and I think it sounds lovely. So this is a Tritone substitution chord that it's not an augmented sixth chord. Can I do the opposite? So can I find a chord that contains A flat and F sharp, but does not contain the C note? So this chord will be an augmented sixth chord, but not a Tritone substitution chord. Definitely I can. And indeed, a few weeks ago, I posted a video about non-standard augmented sixth chord, and literally all the examples we see there do exactly this. Let me just repeat one here. We could have an A flat minor 7th flat 5 chord. The notes in this chord would be A flat, C flat, E double flat, G flat, which can be respelled to A flat, B, D, F sharp. This is the famous Tristan chord, which is an augmented sixth chord, and if I play C, this A flat minor 7th flat 5, G7, C, I will have this sound. So again, if we limit ourselves to think about A flat 7, yes, Tritone substitution and augmented sixth are the same, but if we expand our mind and we think about the principles behind are different because the augmented sixth chords are based on the augmented sixth interval, and the Tritone substitution chord are based on a tritone interval, and so we would think about this chord in different ways and we would expand them in different directions. Both of those directions, both of those families of chord sound good and they are legit chords. All of these may seem complex at first, but this is really easy if you learn your harmony by thinking not at all the possible examples like most books do, but by learning the principles behind it. Now, if you want to learn your harmony based on principles so that you can see all this reasoning behind, and of course you want also a lot of examples, then I would recommend you guys have a look at my course, Complete Chord Mastery. Complete Chord Mastery is not a book, it's a complete video course made by guitar players for guitar players. In this course, yes, you do get a metric ton of examples, but you also get the principles behind all these, and on top of it all, you also get a number of exercises to learn to implement these things directly on the fretboard so that your hands will do the thinking, not only you, and there is no useless theory, everything is done practically on the fretboard with immediate application. If you have just a minute, click on the link on the top right and check out Complete Chord Mastery. If you like these videos, smash on that like button, don't forget to subscribe and click on notification, otherwise YouTube will not let you know when I put up a new video. And if you have any comment, feedback, suggestion, then write it down in the comment. I love reading from you and I make video based on your comments. This is Tommaso Zilio of MissDutyForGuitar.com, and until next time, enjoy!